podcast where best friends and next-door neighbors, Willow and Lillian, spill the tea on murder, mysteries, and other things that go bump in the night. So get your favorite teacup ready, and let's get into it. Welcome to Cruelty Podcast. This is Lillian, and with me is Willow.
Hello.
We're back.
We are.
I didn't die.
She did not die.
But I tried to.
Girl, it's so hot.
Well, it wasn't so much. Okay, so as all of y'all probably know, if you've listened for a minute, I have temporal lobe epilepsy. I have since I was 8 years old. And heat is like one of my major triggers. However, it hasn't really affected me in many years. It was stress. Wow, I was super stressed. Mm-hmm. I had a lot of extra bills because my dog is apparently allergic to being alive, and it cost a lot of money, and then there were bills, and then it was hot. And so I just flopped around like 4 times. And I can't, after I have a seizure, I have to basically lay down for like 12 hours. And so I was just unable to anything.
Yeah.
And so I appreciate you guys being patient. Thank you.
Thank you for reaching out.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. A lot of you have messaged me, and I really appreciate the messages. It's so nice. If I didn't answer you, just ping me again.
Yeah.
Because I probably had by the time I came out of my stupor, I had 90. That is a lot.
That's lovely. And that's nice, though.
It just
sweet.
Well, most of those are from business dealings and not.
Oh, I thought you meant 90 people were.
It was 90,
well.
but they weren't. Not all of them were wishing me well. A lot of them were actually like, "Where's my shit?" And I was like, "Oh God, calm down. I'm not Walmart. Yeah, please chill."
She is a one person
running 3 things,
businesses, multiple businesses.
Yeah. But I don't want to bitch anymore. I just wanted to give you guys a heads up.
Clarify that since the past couple episodes had to be rewinds.
Yes, but they were good ones.
They were.
The Sneha Phillip one is one of my favorite episodes we've done, and I still wonder about her. I still think about her. But we're still on our CCTV month. This is the last episode of this month's theme, and I would like you to go ahead and announce next month's theme.
Oh, yeah?
Yeah.
Okay, so everyone voted and
on Patreon,
on Patreon, and we are doing medical murders next month.
Very interesting. Yes, I have a lot of good cases lined up for this. I'm excited about it. Yeah.
My next case and this case, the perpetrator, they both went to the same prison.
Oh, wow. Interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah.
A lot of people went to this prison.
And I think I am familiar with this case that you're doing. And I will say we are ending the month on a really rough case.
This is actually considered the first serial killer ever caught on camera killing an actual victim on camera.
My God. It's terrible.
It's nightmare fuel. Yeah.
Well, take her away.
So trigger warning is animal abuse, descriptions of assault and murder, dismemberment, cannibalism, domestic violence, and domestic assault.
Good Lord.
It's all of them, yeah. So this case is also known as the Bradford murders. It takes place in Bradford, England, which is said to be one of, if not the most dangerous place in the UK. Bradford is very impoverished. It's a very impoverished community in West Yorkshire. It has a very high unemployment rate, which subsequently, of course, has high crime rates, lots of theft, lots of burglary, especially violent and sexual crimes. Bradford is has a pretty large red light district and is generally the place that people in the surrounding areas would go for sex work. On June 22nd, 2009, a 43-year-old sex worker named Susan Rushworth disappeared from Bradford's red light district. She wasn't your average sex worker. She actually started 3 years prior when she turned 40. So it's kind of later. That is
unusual,
Most sex workers usually start in their teens. But yeah, before that, she had a full and seemingly very charming life. She grew up in the countryside with loving parents, a brother that she was really close to. She married young and she had children in her 20s, and it all seemed like rainbows and sunshine, very happy, very wonderful, kind of like picturesque type of life. Very happy marriage. until one day her husband left. Just left. Left her with 2 kids to raise and very little income, and she struggled hard because of this. She stayed single for a while until she met someone she fell in love with. They ended up, being just absolutely head over heels for each other, and they ended up having her 3rd child together, and everything seemed to go really well until he left too.
Oh, poor thing.
Only this time, this man had introduced her to drugs during their relationship. And it started with the occasional cocaine for a little pep in your step, or, alcohol here and there. But eventually it turned to heroin. And by the time he left, she was in full addiction. And her mother tried to help her get some sort of treatment, but by the time she came out of treatment, her addiction came back stronger than ever before, and it was even harder to resist. She couldn't keep up a regular job because she was, high on heroin, and she ended up turning to sex work in order to, chase that high, and honestly, at that point, to feel okay. Because at that point, especially in heroin addiction, you are sick as a dog until you get it.
Yeah. I lost a lot of friends to heroin.
Same, girl,
Lots.
same. Yeah. I've never personally done heroin, but I've done a lot of things that come close to it.
I have.
So,
luckily, though, it just didn't tickle my pickle. Mm-mm. But I watched it just kill friends in the 90s real bad.
Yeah. She... And especially, having grown up in the area, because this is, it's a relatively smaller town. I think it was 30,000 people, but nothing like the small town that we live in. But still, going from this mom, this wife, this kind of a wholesome place in her community, raising children, they all, all through her 30s and stuff, going to sex work, standing on the street corner, was a really big embarrassment for her. And it was really sad because she was just trying to feel okay, at that point.
Oh, yeah.
And people who saw her standing on the street corner, they would stop and say hi to her. See, oh, do you need a ride? She's like, oh no, I'm waiting for the bus. I'm just waiting for the bus. She pointed at the bus sign, but the bus would come and go, and people just kind of ended
pitiful.
up. It is. It's sad that, that she had to feel that way.
Yeah.
It's sad that
feel ashamed.
Yeah, absolutely. In the weeks leading up to her disappearance, Susan was trying to get clean. She was trying to turn her life around and get off the streets. She was actually 5 weeks clean off heroin the day that she went missing.
Oh, wow.
Doesn't that break your heart?
It does, because heroin's so hard to kick.
Well, and it's on the coming out part, you would want something bad to happen when you're at your lowest, where you can already handle it, but she's coming out. It's happy. She's almost there.
Accomplished so much.
Yes, and it just it kind of just breaks your heart even more. It's already heartbreaking, but she was 5 weeks clean. That's a huge accomplishment.
It really is.
She had signed up for government assistance. She was receiving checks to substitute her sex work. She was doing everything she could to get back off the streets and to get clean. It was the day after Father's Day. She had left her mother's house to go pick up her methadone prescription because, again, she's, trying to kick back the withdrawals. She said that she'd be back in a couple hours. When she wasn't back in a couple hours, and a couple hours turned to several hours, and it got dark, her mother got to worry. She tried calling her cell phone, and it was off. And again, this is 2009.
You don't turn the cell phone off.
Well, those cell phones don't die.
No,
you know what I mean?
They never did.
They found one in the lake, then it's still alive. Yeah, and it wasn't like her to just turn off her cell phone. It wasn't like her to not have it charged. And it definitely wasn't like her to just not answer. And especially her mother's phone calls. She always answered her mother's phone calls. Her brother contacted the police, and the flyers started going up immediately, and the search began. They questioned drug dealers. They questioned sex workers. They searched everywhere they could for her, from alleyways, searching people's apartments, searching rivers and lakes and wooded areas. They checked hospitals and rehab centers just in case she might be either injured or possibly have checked herself in somewhere. Every known acquaintance, every person who frequents the red light district, everyone and anyone who could possibly be a suspect was questioned. And basically, there was no limit to their search. They had to find her. But sadly, no one had seen her. No one had seen anything. No one was even suspected of anything. She just was like plucked out of midair. Over the next few months of searching, they realized they would probably be looking for a body instead of a missing person. The case turned even more somber when they were able to gather Susan's cell phone records and her bank statements and found that she hadn't even used her phone or her bank cards since the day that she went missing. Her older brother took to the press, or her older son, took to the press begging for anyone who may have seen something to come forward. Her brother continued to search on his own after the police would clock out for the day. He'd hit the streets at night and talk to as many sex workers as often as he could, just kind of keeping his sister's memory alive, jogging other people's memory, asking multiple sex workers, just trying to get to the bottom of it. Just hoping somebody knew something. One of the sex workers he spoke to was 31-year-old Shelley Armitage. She knew his sister, Susan. They worked together, and just a few weeks later, after they talked about Susan, Shelley went missing as well.
Yeah.
On April 26, 2010, almost a year after Susan was reported missing, she went missing. Shelley was a happy girl, bubbly and lively. She was gorgeous, and she had huge dreams of becoming a model someday. She loved to go out dancing with her friends. She was part of the late 90s, early 2000s rave scene. Same.
Same, though.
Yeah. And, of course, she did the recreational party drugs just like everybody else did during those times. But unlike her friends, those drugs became more than just recreational. Shelley was just 16 years old when she became addicted to heroin. She tried to keep the sex work a secret from her family, but whispers around town got around, and eventually they found out. They just were really worried about her safety. They were heartbroken, but it wasn't out of shame. They just really wanted their daughter to be safe. But Shelley was confident in herself. She knew the streets, and everyone there was her friend. Everyone knew her name and respected her. She was highly sought after and made really good money doing so. So she kind of felt invincible. Eventually, the drugs became too much and stood in the way of what she wanted in life. So she started to work on getting sober, just like Susan before her. She ended up getting a boyfriend and a dog and an apartment. She got on methadone and was, becoming a person again to herself. She was pursuing the things that she wanted in life. She was working towards pursuing modeling dreams. She wanted to do all of those big dreams for real this time and not let anything get in the way. Shelley saw her parents around noon the day that she went missing. They just happened to pass by each other on the sidewalk. And they stopped and they hugged, and they made plans for later, gave each other hugs, said, "I love you," and walked away. It was pretty much immediately after that she went missing.
It's so sad.
Isn't it kind of just like, it's eerie. It gets my heart that they just happened to stumble across each other's path.
Yeah. But I will say this, at least they got to say goodbye and I love you.
Yes, absolutely.
Because in a lot of these cases, that doesn't happen.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. It's the only silver lining I can pull out of it.
Right. Yeah, just thank goodness she got that hug before what happened.
At least the last parting words were sweet and they were good.
Right. She talked to her sister on the phone around 2, and she seemed really chill. She said that she had been with a friend in town. She didn't say who, but she said that she was having a good time and that she would call her back later. But when later rolled around 7 p.m., her sister hadn't heard anything, so she tried calling her, but there was no answer. That night, her boyfriend was worried when she didn't come home, so he called her parents, and they tried calling the police, but they were told to wait till the next day. When no one had heard from her the next day, and she didn't pick up her check or prescription the next day, which she had planned, and everybody knew that was something that she was going to go do, they just knew that something was wrong. You kind of know when somebody doesn't cash their check.
Yeah, that's always a big red flag for sure. Mm-hmm. And I can't think of how many cases we've covered where they don't pick up their check.
That's the number one indicator a lot of the times, yeah. Police ended up starting an investigation as soon as they realized that. But like Susan's disappearance, no one knew anything or saw anything. It was literally like she just vanished out of thin air. They checked all of the cameras in the area to see if they could find anything that showed maybe like Shelley that night, maybe somebody that she was talking to. They did find some CCTV footage of her walking down the street, but honestly, by the way she was like walking with her hands out, like almost dancing and prancing, and she looked like she was having a great time. She looked like she was like, I mean, there was no sound, but it kind of looked like she was like skipping and singing. She just looked like she was, I don't know, just having the time of her life by herself. The footage was released. There was nobody else in the footage. It was just her, but it was released to show people like what she looked like that night, what she was wearing, and, you know, in the environment that she was in. So maybe it would possibly jog someone's memory. But nothing really came from this. And even though Shelley and Susan were both working the same area, police didn't necessarily have anything to link them other than that. And so these cases were kept separate. And so the searches for each girl are still continuing, basically, and they have their own search teams. Mm-hmm. During the search for Shelley, Shelley's father ended up talking to a sex worker who knew Shelley, who would go missing shortly after being questioned.
Oh my God.
Yeah.
That's so scary.
It's fucking terrifying.
It really is.
36-year-old Suzanne Blameyers went missing a month after Shelley in May 21st, 2010. She was actually a friend of both Susan and Shelley and was questioned in both searches. She was terrified for her friends. She was really keeping up to date with both cases. She was like checking in all the time. Yeah, absolutely. She was very much involved with the searches.
And people don't realize that with sex workers is that we like look out for each other.
Oh, hell yeah. Oh, yeah.
You got your girls back, you know.
Absolutely. You have to.
You have to.
Yeah.
Or you're not going to be safe.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And yeah, she was terrified for her friends. She was terrified for herself. She knew that like any of them could be the next target on the street. And she would like call her mother frequently with updates. Like that was kind of like the thing that they were talking about at the time, you know, like just constantly calling each other.
It's so creepy.
It's so eerie. Yeah. And like the two other girls, Suzanne was addicted to heroin and was working to pay off that habit. Her addiction started when she was about 21 years old. Suzanne was described as having a happy and bubbly personality, and everyone loved her. Like she was a star in and of herself. She had many friends and was constantly making new friends everywhere she went. She was just so much fun to be around. She was like magnetic. Like people just like came to her. And just like Shelley, it all started with raves and having fun with friends and partying and recreational drug use. And then, you know, quickly heroin would take over. Her mother said that Suzanne described it like a merry-go-round. Like once you get on, you can't really get off.
Yeah.
Just that constant cycle of sex work to pay the drug use to go to sleep. Yeah. And then you go to sleep, you wake up and you're withdrawing, so you have to go do the sex work to pay for the drugs. And, you know, it just kind of never ends. It's a merry-go-round that never ends.
Yeah.
And it's really, really hard to break the cycle. Her parents had no idea how to help her. They didn't know what drugs were. I mean, they knew as much as like the news told them about drugs, but they didn't know anything really. And they really didn't know what to do for their daughter. They tried treatments and it never worked. One day her dad was so upset, just wanting to keep his daughter safe, that he locked her in the house for the night. Just so at least that night she could stay safe. And that night he could have his daughter alive.
It's pitiful.
Because he just knew that something out there could harm her. Yeah. And it's sad because he was true. He was right. One day, on the day that she went missing, she had stayed the night with her parents because she wasn't feeling very well. But the next morning, on Friday, her mom dropped her off at her apartment on the way to work, and she seemed better. She seemed happy. She hugged and kissed her mom goodbye and told her that she'd call her later, and that was the last time her mom saw her. She was a little worried when Susan didn't call her back that night, but she tried not to worry too much because Susan, being the bubbly and outgoing person that she was, you know, she could have just been hanging out with someone. She'd been up late a lot lately. Like, she didn't instantly want to think that something terrible had happened.
Right, you want to be calm, you want to be rational.
Right.
Yeah, you don't want to jump to conclusions.
Especially, at night. But the next day, her boyfriend showed up at her mom's house.
Yeah,
just like in the last
I'd
case.
be worried. Yeah.
And when the boyfriend showed up, she was instantly terrified. So they contacted police and they launched the third search. A huge search team was searching everywhere they could think, every wooded area, every creek, every river, every lake. All weekend they searched. Because again, she went missing on the Friday. So they searched all weekend. And then that Monday, police got a phone call. It was from the Home Field Court apartment building in downtown Bradford, the heart of the red light district. The caretaker of the apartment building had just started his morning shift. The first task of his morning shift every Monday was to go over the CCTV footage
Oh, God.
of the apartment building from the weekend to see what he had missed, to see, because, those were his days off. That was his routine job.
Right.
To make sure no hooligan mess happened. And usually this part of the job would be, the time where you get your coffee, you peel your eyelids open, you sit at your desk, and you're just bored as hell.
And you just watch a lot of nothing happen.
Yeah, exactly. And it's usually the most boring thing that this person does. But this Monday would be different. He casually watches as a couple walks down the hallway, and then a few seconds later, the woman is seen running at full speed down the hallway. Following behind her is the man she just walked down the hallway with.
Oh, God.
Only this time, he's put on gloves and is carrying a crossbow. He stops, points the crossbow, he shoots, he misses, he runs. He catches up to her. Right there on camera, he pins her down, reloads the crossbow, and trigger warning, he fires the crossbow into her face.
My God.
All on camera. This man's just trying to have a Monday morning.
I can't imagine seeing something like that.
Oh, just terrifying. And after he does this, he drags her lifeless body back into his apartment, still carrying the crossbow. He goes into his apartment for maybe a minute, a few seconds. He comes back out of his apartment, still carrying the crossbow, only this time, for some reason, he changes his gloves into fingerless gloves. He doesn't just take the gloves off. He puts on fingerless gloves, because that's what cool guys wear. He comes up with the crossbow over his shoulder. He comes up to the CCTV footage camera, like he comes up to the camera, looks straight into the lens. He grits his teeth, and with the other hand, he just throws up his middle finger to the camera to say, "Fuck you for watching me."
My God.
Terrifying.
This fucking guy.
Now, this man, since he's right there in the camera, very easily identifiable, was confirmed to be tenant of flat 33 at the end of the hall, a 40-year-old man named Stephen Sean Griffiths. This guy is like the edgiest edgelord that ever edged.
Yeah.
Okay. This guy. So he was born on December 24th, 1969, which I have written in my notes aside. I a lot of times, I know nobody reads my notes. A lot of times I'll leave like jokes in there that I usually don't say out loud, but I literally wrote, Krampus himself delivered him at his parents' doorstep because the devil didn't want to touch him.
I mean,
He's the worst Christmas present ever.
that's true.
He had a very normal upbringing, like, for the most part. His parents really did care for him. He was doted on. He was extremely intelligent from a young age. And honestly, he had brothers and sisters. I think he had 3 siblings. Nobody talks about them. His parents don't talk about them. Like, it's like all of the kids were overshadowed because this kid was highly intelligent. Very intelligent. His parents could tell that he was worth investing in, educationally speaking. And so they worked really hard and were determined to put him into private schools, which is very expensive. And not something that was easy for them to do. Like, they would go without meals. in order to put him into this school. His father was a fishmonger, and his mother worked at a call center. So they were like pretty lower middle class. The private school that he ended up going to cost his family $9,000 a year.
Jesus.
In the 80s.
What the fuck?
Yeah. He had a scholarship, which took a little bit off of it, but like really though,
that's crazy.
This was a lot to handle. Yeah, I can't imagine that now, but back in the 80s, but yeah, they couldn't, the family couldn't hold it together. His mother ended up having to commit benefit fraud in order to make ends meet. She ended up getting caught and sent to prison, which ended up making the family struggle even more because now they're out that income. And Stephen hated his mother for this. He really resented her for leaving the family, even though she was going to prison. And for making them poor is how he saw it. He saw it that like he didn't get nice things. He didn't get new toys. He didn't get new clothes. And it was completely her fault. When his mother got out of prison, she divorced his father, and he had to go live with his mother, and he didn't want that. He wanted to go live with his father. So it's just like layers and layers of resentment building up towards his mother, which would obviously eventually turn into rage towards women. There is also a lot of different sources noted this. I couldn't really like get a solid answer on whether or not this happened, but some sources say that he saw his mother in the act of sex work. And so maybe that this was one of his ties towards hating sex workers in particular, but it seemed like he was doing a lot of projecting of his mother on the women that he brutalized. He was pretty terrible from the beginning, from a very small child. He was just a very terrible person. When he was very small, one of his childhood friends who lived in the neighborhood saw Stephen take a newborn baby rat, trigger warning, take a newborn baby rat and swallow it whole, chase it down with some water, just for the thrill, just for the fucking thrill. And I'm talking young, like maybe 6 years old. The other neighbors recalled him as a young child shooting and killing birds outside in the trees. And when they fell down to the ground, he would make sure they were dead, furthermore. And then he would skin them and dismember them. At first, since he's a small kid and he doesn't have any tools, he does it with his bare hands. And eventually he, moves on to using tools, and eventually he would move on to bringing these animals inside to further dismember them and kind of like rearrange them. And he's just covered in blood. Like this small child is just covered in animal blood. I don't even know
what I would do if my kid did something like that.
No, I don't. I don't know how. And he did it with like no emotion, like completely.
Yeah, that's really scary.
No emotion. It was terrifying. And eventually he would, again, another trigger warning, he would cut the ears and tails off puppies just to harm them.
I can't cope.
One time he put a bunch of kittens that he found in a bag, tied it shut, and threw it in the canal just for fun. He just loved harming animals, and he did it so frequently that like even up until his 20s he was still shooting the birds out of the trees and dismembering them just for fun. Eventually, he got older and bigger, and so he moved on to bigger prey as well. Throughout his teenage years, he started committing petty crimes like theft. He started drinking and rebelling. In 1987, when he was 17 years old, he was at a library, and he noticed 4 girls standing by who were talking, and he heard them like whispering to each other and giggling. Again, these girls could be not talking about him. They could be talking about something else, minding their own business, but he thought that they were talking about him. And he just sat there staring at them, stewing, getting super mad. The more that they giggled, the more furious he got. And eventually he got up out of his chair. He walked up to them, pulled a knife out of his pocket, and threatened them with it.
My God.
The girls didn't go to the authorities, but they did go home and tell their parents, and one of the girls' fathers got super mad and went and found Stephen. And when he did, Stephen held the same knife up to his throat and threatened him as well. Nothing was done. Soon after that, Stephen was at a grocery store when an employee came up to him and asked him about the items that he was in the process of stealing. And Stephen pulled out his knife and slashed the employee across the face. They were rushed to the hospital. They needed 19 stitches across their face.
Oh my God. He should have gone to jail for that shit.
He was arrested.
Good.
But because he was a minor, he was only sentenced to 3 years in a youth facility. He was released the following year.
And I'm not sure, like, prison is the choice. He should have gotten some kind of
It was a youth
evaluation.
facility.
Yeah.
But he would get evaluated later.
Okay.
But
okay.
Yeah, I mean, he's 17 years old. They only kept him until around the time he turned 18.
Yeah.
And then he was released, and he's a legal adult. So he immediately got his own apartment and enrolled in the college at Bradford College studying psychology. Girl. The very next year, he was in court again, this time carrying an air pistol, which he wasn't allowed to do under his probation. That air pistol was what he was shooting the birds out of the trees with. He was sentenced to 100 hours community service. After completing his probation and his community service hours in 1991, he was sent to Rampton Hospital for like a week, where he was given an extensive
Psych eval?
Psych eval,
Okay.
yeah, absolutely. It was determined that he had a personality disorder, and then he needed more studying and was diagnosed with as a sadistic schizoid psychopath.
Oh, Lord.
Which a schizoid psychopath, according to Google, is classified as, quote, a condition where people show very little, if any, interest and ability to form friendship or relationships with other people. It's very hard for this person to express full range of emotions. They have difficulty expressing anger, especially when provoked. They do not react appropriately to important life events and may seem passive in response to their circumstances. So I couldn't get an actual like video of just the interrogation. I've seen clips throughout other people's interpretations of this case and different documentaries, but I couldn't find like just the full interrogation video. But the clips that I've seen, he is that exact same description. He's just very flat, mm-hmm. and no affect, and just, well, I don't know. I just did what I did.
Like, so weird.
Yeah, very robotic. They also tend to be self-centered, which he very much was, and not really care for much for other people. Also mixed with the sadistic nature, people with this disorder are thought to have the desire to control others, accomplishing this through the use of physical or emotional violence. So it's just a really big mixed bag of with the things that he wants to do in life. It's dangerous.
Yeah.
It's very dangerous. Years later, in a police interview, when Stephen was asked why he did what he did, he said very plainly, well, I'm misanthropic. I don't like much the human race.
What the fuck?
Okay. Then why are you studying it? I know why.
Or just
kidding.
move into the middle of nowhere where no one is.
Yeah, then go away.
Go away, yeah.
Get away from the humans and stop hurting them. I don't know. While he was taking the psych exam, he was talking to a psychologist and going through the diagnosis process, he started talking about all sorts of dark fantasies he had about killing people and how he wanted to become a serial killer. He was so fixated on this. It was bad. He said that he fantasized about killing all the time, how he admired certain big name serial killers, quote unquote, and as if they were celebrities. Like, he was treating Ted Bundy like a fucking celebrity. It was gross.
God, fucking hate Ted Bundy.
Yeah, and this made the doctor really uncomfortable, of course, but like they couldn't do anything about just an icky feeling. You know, I wish they could have done something at this point, but they can't. Technically, they can't. They just had to wait until he acted on all the things that he was talking about. Along with the obsession with murder and harming people and animals, he also suffered from severe delusions. One in particular was bugs crawling in his ears while he's sleeping. He became so distraught by this that he would put Q-tip ends inside of his ears while he slept. And if he didn't have Q-tips, or if he was somewhere where he just couldn't find Q-tips, he just wouldn't sleep.
God.
It's just a very strange level of delusion and control over the situation.
Yes.
Yeah. In 1992, when Stephen was in his early 20s, he attacked another woman holding a knife up to her throat. He was sentenced to 2 years in Leeds prison, but he was let out of spring of 1993 and went right back to school. Now, he would go through university from 1997 until 2009, whenever he was arrested. First, he went for his bachelor's degree in science at Leeds University, and then he would go on to get his PhD in psychology. But right before he got his PhD, like literally, like it was like a couple months before his arrest, and it was like at the very end, like right before he was supposed to get his PhD, he was given a quote-unquote conditional discharge for harassment. So you're telling me for over 10 years, for 12 years, longer than that, almost, yeah, because he started like in the early, like 1992. So like for over almost 15 years of schooling, and you're going to end it all just because you can't stop harassing people?
God.
Like, it's a lot of, why are you there?
Right? Quit going.
Yeah. No, but he had to. He was so thirsty for this information because he was taking classes on criminology.
Oh, he was trying to figure out how to get away with it.
He was taking classes on serial killers.
He was trying to get away with it. Yeah.
Girl, yeah. He was obsessed with this. Yeah, he studied anything that he could get his hands on with all the famous serial killers. His entire apartment was covered with books and bookshelves, like stacks of books of all true crime novels, which, I mean, okay, guilty. But also novels of quote unquote the greats, as he would have put it, like Fred and Rose West.
Fucking hate them.
Ted Bundy, Peter Sutcliffe, the Yorkshire Ripper, which he was obsessed with and tried to copy, which that's going to be my next Patreon episode, is Peter Sutcliffe, because...
And that's a particularly gruesome case.
Yes, it's very rough. And he idolized this man, like to the point where he lived in Bradford, like, which is one of Peter Sutcliffe's like main killing spots. And, you know, he would like walk by places where bodies were dumped and just like marvel as if it was like, you know, like a historical marker for
Gross.
him. Yeah. He grew his hair long and greased it up and slicked it back in a ponytail, like that 90s style with the perm. And I knew so many people with that hairdo.
Me too.
He wore a long black trench coat year round, even on the hottest days. He wore sunglasses all day and night. Even though he like grew up loving to torture animals, I mean, still did, but even though he had a love for torturing animals, he had 2 pets that he absolutely adored, that he was absolutely obsessed with. He had 2 huge monitor lizards.
You know, they say that psychopaths tend to pick pets like sharks, lizards, and snakes. They're fascinated with those creatures because they respect them.
I respect the fuck out of snakes.
When I say respect them, they respect them for being killers and cold-blooded and not having any humanity.
Yeah, so if you don't know what a monitor lizard is, it's very much like a Komodo dragon.
They're
it's
huge.
Just a little bit smaller.
Yeah.
Komodo dragon, I had to look because I didn't know the difference. A Komodo dragon gets up to 300 pounds and 10 feet long. The average monitor lizard is 3 to 7 feet long and about 100 plus pounds.
Yeah.
So his were on the bigger scale. So he would walk around in this giant trench coat, sunglasses, greasy hair in a ponytail with these 2 monitor lizards on leashes, just walking down the street. And he was just an absolute spectacle.
Not a look, not a vibe.
Honestly, like, the more research I did on this guy, I was like, well, at this point, I would have fucking thought this guy was cool. Like, I would have been one of those people that were, like, just, like, kind of, like, starry-eyed to be around him because he's just so fucking weird. Like, he kind of became, like, a street celebrity almost. Like,
I can see that.
Like a character. And one time he even snuck the lizards into a nightclub. Like, he had a lizard in his backpack and he went to like a goth nightclub and was like dancing with the lizard. I don't know, stories like that, this quirky, like, weird person. I would definitely be susceptible to wanting to at least get to know this guy because he's
Yeah,
just
you
so
would.
fucking weird. Yeah, I would. He allegedly even would pick up sex workers on the street and take them back to his house just to hang out, just to do drugs and hang out. Honestly, like as a side note, I think it's part of his personality disorder. He didn't really have much of a sex life. Like he wasn't really into all of that much. I mean, I'm sure he had a child that ended up being an ectopic pregnancy, so he didn't actually have a child. But definitely know he had sex and he abused people, but it wasn't his main motive. I think violence was his main motive. But he was very well known on the street for being actually a safe place at this time. He would invite sex workers over just to hang out, do drugs, party, drink, whatever, but also like give them food, give them a shower, allow them to like wash their clothes, like would be a safe place, a safe haven, and then also be like, dude, check out my fucking lizards. He ended up meeting a lot of people this way, and that's how he knew all the sex workers, and that's why he was never considered a suspect through them. They all knew him. They all knew where he lived. They all had been to his house, but they didn't think that he was the one killing all these girls. But yeah, he ended up inviting one of his apartment neighbors over one time. This is just like something really unnerving that he did. It was kind of like one of the first red flags to the people around him that knew him. This girl came over. He told this girl to come over. He was like, hey, you got to come check this out. And she was like, okay. She walks in, and at this point, he has a full rat farm in his house. Like, it's just a bunch of rat cages that he never cleaned out. So his apartment smelled like rat pee real bad. And he is rough. I know. I love rats, and I love people who take care of rats, but you got to clean the cages. But yeah, he ended up showing her how his monitor lizard ate, and she didn't like this. She wasn't ready for this. She was not prepared for this. And he dangled a rat in front of his monitor lizard to scare it and really tortured this rat for a while before the monitor lizard jumped up, bit the rat in half.
God.
Right in front of and like clean cut in half. And it just scarred this woman. Like, you could tell, like, in the interview while she was talking about it, it just really fucked her up. Because that's not what she was... It's not what she was ready for. So, yeah, after that, she was just mortified. She avoided him altogether. And from what I could find, police never found the lizards. Like, there was even, like, news articles and updates of saying, like, because people were writing into their local news station to be like, have you found the lizards? Because when they searched his apartment, there were no lizards.
I wonder if he didn't put them down himself.
Well, okay, so he killed her on... all that stuff happened on, I think, Friday evening. So he knew that the CCTV footage wasn't going to be reviewed until Monday. So he had all weekend. So there's footage of him walking through the hallways, like drinking a drink and like staring at the camera, just knowing that he's biding his time.
Oh, that is so creepy.
Yes, and you can also see the the CCTV footage of him like carrying small bags out.
Oh, no,
one at a time and not returning with the bags, that kind of thing. But it was never said if they saw him leaving with the lizards. I believe that a neighbor might have seen him leaving with the lizards and then not returning. It's believed that he may have sold them to an exotic dealer.
Yeah, probably.
Because I don't think he would have killed them. I think that he kind of had a thing about them.
Yeah, I agree.
But yeah, just to answer that question, because I know, like, again, it was a lot of people were asking about the lizards. But throughout his time in college, he had dated many women. Again, because he's that type of charming that we've talked about off mic before, but it's that type of charming where they ask you all about yourself. They talk about you first. They get interested in you.
It's a superficial charm, yeah.
Mm-hmm. And it's manipulative, so that way they can find out where, the things that you like and the things that you don't like, so that way they know how to manipulate you further.
Yeah.
So that's definitely how he was. He came across as somebody who was, very empathetic, somebody that would listen, and he just had a lot of really unnerving relationships that ended very abruptly most of the time, thankfully. But the ones that it lasted, it was terrifying.
Oh, I don't doubt
The
it.
few that lasted were terrifying. Many of them led to stalking and harassment. He would call and leave really creepy voicemails, like say something really creepy and then start maniacally laughing.
God.
Like it was really terrifying. He lied to one of his girlfriends and said that he still lived with his parents, so that way she wouldn't ask to come over to his apartment. But one time, like for 2 years they dated. For 2 years.
Wow.
And they were only going over to her house or, going out on dates. And then one time he mentioned, oh, I got to stop by my place real quick. I got to grab something. She was like, wait, what? I thought you lived with your parents. And he was like, oh, no, I just got my own apartment. I didn't tell you. Oops. She was like, well, let me see. Natural. These are all very natural reactions.
Yeah, it's normal.
Like, I want to come see your new place. That's exciting. He brings her over and the entire apartment is covered in plastic covering, like fucking Dexter.
Yeah, it'd freak me out. I'd be out of there.
It's a dirty apartment, but it's covered in plastic film. Fucking creepy. No, run! And she did. She ran right.
Yeah, that's a whole sea. That's a whole sea of red flags.
Ooh, that is exit immediate. Yeah. When MySpace came around, he had an alter ego. He's just like checking off all the like the checklist of like the edgiest things you could do.
Yeah.
So his MySpace, he had an alter ego named Ven Pariah.
Stupid.
Well, we all know what pariah means
Yeah.
like the lowest of the low class, like the scum of society, basically.
Outcast. Yeah.
Outcast. Ven. There's a lot of words that it could have been shortened from, but most people, and I like to lean on this one because we don't know technically what he meant by Ven, but most people say that it's because they would shorten Stephen to Steve, and he'd be like, "No, it's Ven."
Yeah, it's pretty good.
It's so cringy. It's so cringy.
Yeah.
No, it's Ben. That's like, okay, your friend named Thomas. Like, oh, is it Tom? No, it's Mass.
Yeah.
God, just terrible. So yeah, his MySpace was like the cringiest thing of all time. It was just like all like, it's all true crime, but like true crime, like obsessed. Like
it's a true crime where they fetishize it instead of just having an interest in the subject.
Yes, like really obsessing over every little detail of the murderer's life and all the things about the murderer. It was just basically like killer porn, and details about the crimes that only gross people would want to really talk about. And he would of course write this off as his criminology degree, but he was obsessing. He was obsessing hard. He was extremely violent and abusive in his longest relationship, a relationship with a woman named Kathy Hancock, who he met in 2000. Now, she was a prison guard, and with his education in criminology and his apparent obsession with true crime, they seemed like the perfect couple, like when they first met. At least to her. He told her that he was attracted to her because she was an authority figure, and the way he talks about it is just really gross. He told her that she was the ideal woman because she was a police officer.
That's so weird.
But she wasn't. She was a guard, but still. So Kathy said that he was really good at initiating conversation, like, in hindsight being manipulative, but she didn't realize that he was like really easy to talk to. She said that he was really empathetic and kind. And at first, she had no idea that it was all a facade. What she didn't realize is pretty much as soon as they met, he was working on isolating her a little bit at a time, like slow boiling a frog. He was basically like subtly getting her more and more and more to himself. She later said, quote, "He wants control of everything, but he does it in such a passive way, he can make you doubt the way that you are." And it's a terrifying manipulative
That is
task.
very scary,
Yeah.
yes.
He wanted Kathy to move in with him, but she had 2 dogs that she loved and adored, and these dogs prevented her from moving into his apartment. They were basically her children. She loved them more than anything in this world. They were literally the most important things to her. 2 weeks into the relationship, Stephen comes over for a visit, and they're just sitting in her living room. He brings her a cup of tea, And they're sitting there and they're having a nice conversation. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, he starts maniacally laughing. Laughing loud and hard in her face. And she's like, whoa, what are you laughing at? And he says, you're dying. She was like, what? He says, I've poisoned you. You're dying.
Oh my God.
He wouldn't let her call police. She had to drive herself to the hospital where her stomach was pumped and she was saved. But while she was in the hospital, her dogs were removed from her apartment.
Oh my God.
He poisoned her so he could get her out of the house so he could get rid of her dogs.
Oh my God.
That's how obsessive he was.
Yeah.
Even her neighbors said that they saw him leaving with the dogs and saw him return without them. They probably assumed it was something harmless, like he was taking the dogs to her or something. But when Kathy found out, she was absolutely heartbroken. Stephen told Kathy it was probably a burglar. Somebody broke in and burglarized her apartment while she was gone, but nothing was touched.
Only stole the dogs.
Only stole the dogs. Okay. She would go on to endure just tremendous mental torture, physical abuse from Stephen for almost 10 years. From 2000 until 2009, whenever he was arrested. Now, she tried to break up with him in 2001 after this dog incident.
Yeah, but people like that are almost impossible to break up with because of the harassment.
9 years she was harassed.
God, poor thing.
Yeah. Soon after the dogs were gone, Stephen started locking her in his apartment for long periods of time. He'd take her clothes off, make her lay in the room naked while he watched TV.
It's fucked.
Just for the control.
Yeah.
She ended up getting pregnant, and she was the one that had the ectopic pregnancy, so luckily she didn't have to go through with that. But Stephen was really weird about this. He took the pregnancy test that said positive. He made a small coffin for it and put the pregnancy test in a coffin.
Yeah, that's fucked up.
It was really creepy.
It's fucked up.
Yeah. But yeah, it was after that in 2001 that she ended up trying to get away. But one time, he did several things to try to win her back. Not even win her back, but just try to get around her or get her in his life. At one point, he tried to get her back by attempting to cut off the tail of a dog. He called her saying that he couldn't get all the way through. And she was like, what the fuck? She drove there, got the dog to the vet, saved the dog's life. But that got her back into his grasp.
Yeah, because he knew she cared about animals.
Yes.
He used her feelings
Isn't
against
that
her.
just...
It's just maniacal.
Yes. He would beat her. He would hold her hostage. He stalked her. He left her threatening voicemails all the time. One time he got a guy from his apartment, like some neighbor of his, paid him to shoot Kathy's parents. This man and his girlfriend were essentially hired hits, and they showed up to Kathy's parents' house. Kathy's dad opened the door, and the two men looked at each other, and they recognized each other. He said, hey, dude, what are you doing? That man that was supposed to shoot Kathy's father was an inmate, had been an inmate, and Kathy's father was his guard.
Oh, wow.
And they were like, dude, what's up? He came in, they had a little chat, all four of them, so the man and his girlfriend plus Kathy's mother and father all sat in the living room talking. Had a grand old time. So he was like, so what you doing? Why are you here? Why'd you just randomly show up? And he was like, yeah, Steven. You mean my daughter's crazy ex? He's like, yeah, Steven paid me to come kill you. He's like, so are you gonna? Nope. Okay. It was just a very casual conversation, but Stephen is right around the corner just waiting for them to kill, because Stephen drove him there.
Yeah.
Just the lengths that this guy goes just to torture somebody is just astounding. And after this, he continued stalking Kathy until the day he was arrested. And there are many other supposed victims out there that line up with his timeline, both with where he was at the time, because he transferred colleges, but also with the things that were happening as a relationship. You'll see this a lot with serial killers, is when their relationships take a dip, if their girlfriend leaves, or, you know, they get into a fight, or their wife gets pregnant, or something like that happens in their relationships at
Major
home.
life change, yeah.
Yes, they'll go out and they'll take out their aggression on somebody out in the world.
Yeah.
And so there's actually quite a few out there that do line up with his personal life and his physical location.
MO. Yeah.
And his MO, yeah. That he could have committed. He does say whenever he was incarcerated, he said that he did kill others, but he won't admit to them.
Right.
He won't admit to any of them. And yeah, I'll be doing and that's the T, a follow-up on the ones that kind of line up with his timeline, just to kind of give them a little additional credit, and just kind of talk about how all of that works out, how you can kind of like overlap.
Yeah, and we'll be recording that tomorrow.
Yes. But yeah, he just completely refused killing any of them. It was almost like because he studied serial killers, that he just wanted to stick with this magic number of 3, because that makes you a serial killer.
Yes.
And then also serial killers are really prone to withholding information for control.
Yes, they are.
And that's something I think that he wanted to
Leverage,
do because of that.
control,
Leverage.
to continue to hurt the victims and their families.
And
deny them the dignity
yes,
of arrest.
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah, of a final rest.
Just a toy. It's just toying with them,
Yes.
toying with investigators.
Yes.
Their job is never done, and he has more control that way.
Exactly.
But I think most of it had to do with the fact that he's a fucking copycat killer. Let's just face it.
Yeah,
he's a
for sure.
copycat.
For sure.
When police went to arrest him, they expected him to put up a fight. Like, they were armed to the teeth. They had backup. They had full on ready.
Because the brutality of shooting someone in the face with a crossbow.
And flipping off the camera and acknowledging that you just fucking did that on camera. Yeah, you think that you're gonna come into like a standoff or something. He didn't put up a fight at all. They knocked on his door and he said, quote, "I'm here. I'm Osama bin Laden."
That's
Why?
stupid.
It's so stupid.
It's stupid.
He's just cringy, edgy.
It's just fucking with them.
Yeah. They opened the door. He calmly allowed them to arrest him. He did everything very calmly. No protest whatsoever. In his police interview, he was very soft-spoken, but very blunt, and also really cryptic. Like, he wouldn't give a solid answer about things. When he was asked what he did with the bodies, because again, they searched his apartment. They found the crossbow. They found a bunch of like knives and swords. One person was like, they found a sword on his wall, and I looked up at my wall, and I was like,
Yeah,
damn.
there's a sword up there.
I've got swords. So they didn't really find anything in his apartment. They found no bodies or anything like that. So when they asked him about the bodies, he said, quote, "I did what a robot would do."
Oh, I don't know what that means.
Shut the fuck up. Just tell me. Like, come
Yeah,
on. You're
where
wasting
are
my
their
time.
remains?
Jesus.
Yeah.
This isn't a game. But yeah,
It is to him.
I know, and it's really stupid that he's wanting to play this game. Like, grow up, you're 40. But yeah, he would like say things like they would try to say like, okay, well, if you're not going to tell us where you hid the bodies, can you like describe it to us? And he's like, I put the bodies where a robot would put the bodies. I put the bodies where anyone would put the bodies. What he means is the river, but he's just not going to come out and say that, and it's
Right.
annoying.
Yeah.
Many of his neighbors reported seeing him leaving with multiple times with various sized bags and returning empty-handed. One neighbor even stopped him to say hi while he was holding a bag in the hallway.
Ugh.
She mentioned that his bag smelled awful, and he hung his head low and told her that his lizard died. And she comforted him. She felt bad for him.
That's fucked.
She really did. She was like, "Oh, I know how much you care about your lizards. I'm so sorry." And she legitimately went back to her house and hoped that he has a better day. Fucking disgusting. He takes his bags of body parts one by one on the city bus
What the fuck?
to take them to the River Air. And during one of his last trips on the city bus with one of the body parts, he fucking left his cell phone on the bus. Now, I'm assuming that since he knows that he has T-minus whatever days until the CCTV footage is going to be viewed and everybody's going to know what he did, I feel like he just knew that he had that much time left. So I really do feel like he left his cell phone on the bus for a reason. I think that he planted it there. I don't think it just magically fell out of his back pocket or something. It very well could have been an accident, but I just don't feel like it is.
No.
Not that my feelings or anything scientific, but on his cell phone, the police later, it was turned into police, and it had some really fucked up content. He actually videotaped one of the victims dead in his bathtub, which
God.
he called his bathroom the slaughterhouse.
Oh, that's
I'm just
so
like,
gross.
Come on, stop it. The victim was face down in the water, and on her back, he had written sex slave. And he was like kind of like zooming in on the video, and he was like making a video about it. And he called himself on the video, the bloodbath artist. So it's almost like he was trying to really push this as his moniker, the bloodbath artist.
Well, that's fucking stupid.
You're not doing art.
No.
Just annoying. When police searched his flat, they didn't find any body parts. They did find the crossbow, but no body. So they just had to keep searching. Days later, a man found a bag that had washed up on the side of the River Aire. He picked it up thinking that there was a ball inside, which we all know that wasn't. When he opened up the bag, to his horror, he found a human head that had to later be identified through dental records, not because of decomposition, but because of mutilation.
God.
It was identified as Susan Blameyers. He had mutilated her face so much that he had cut off all of the skin on her face. He'd cut off her nose, he'd cut off her ears and her lips. But the crossbow arrow was still stuck in her skull, and as well as a knife, as if he did that later just to make sure.
Just for fun.
And kept it in there.
God.
On purpose.
Disgusting.
After that, police started to comb the banks of the river, and they found over 80 individual parts of human. 80 individual, and these are small parts.
Yeah, I figured.
These are pieces. Most of them would test to be remains of Susan. Some were identified as Shelley Armitage. And I just really want to give these investigators some extra kudos, because someone made mention of this, and it made me think that they could have just tested a few of them and left it at that. They tested every single one.
Good.
And then they tested every single, because there was a couple blood stains,
Good.
like spots of blood. They tested everything.
Good.
Everything, instead of just...
Those women deserve the dignity.
Right. So, yeah, I think it was like, the majority of it was Suzanne, but a few little tiny pieces they found were Shelley, so they were able to, give her
those
that.
cases and give her back.
Blood samples were taken from the apartment, specifically the stove and cookware.
God.
And the bathroom, coming back belonging to all three women. So all three women were in that house. Now, the trial was horrendous, just stomach churning. During the opening proceedings in his trial, all the families are right there. Like, this is a close room. He is feet away from the victims' families. The judge asked him to state his name before the court. This motherfucker stood up, addressed the court as the Crossbow Cannibal.
Fuck this guy.
Those families were sitting there for weeks, months, up to a year, wondering where the fuck their baby girl, their
baby?
daughter, their loved one, wondering where their bodies were. And it took them until they were presented in court to find out this way that he had eaten them.
It's terrible.
He presents it boldly and with
that was
pride,
calculated and on
because
purpose.
he wanted to announce himself as his great moniker that everybody will remember him by. Well, fine, we'll remember you as the fucking cannibal, Crossbow Cannibal, you nasty fuck. It's not a compliment. It's not a good thing.
No.
He's disgusting.
I ain't gonna remember him at all. I'm gonna throw this motherfucker out of my head.
There was an audible gasp. The entire
course.
crowd gasped in
I
horror.
can't imagine. I can't imagine finding out like that.
Finding out like
Disgusting.
that.
Just vile. Evil.
It was the shock and awe factor that he really savored on that one.
Gross.
He craved this type of attention. He wanted to be some sort of dark celebrity. He wanted the fame and the glory of a Manson or a Gacy or a Dahmer. He told them all about how he cooked the first 2 girls, but the last girl, he wanted to save her. He ate her raw. And he looked at those girls' family members as he described what he did to their bodies afterwards. This man doesn't even deserve a good seat in hell.
No.
He doesn't even deserve his own place. He deserves an overcrowded place in hell where he can't breathe because everybody else is attacking him. On December 21st, almost his birthday, on 2010, sorry, that's not a year, 2010, he was found guilty of all 3 murders and was sentenced to life in prison with a whole life order, which is the UK's version of life without parole. The judge told the court, quote, "The circumstances of these murders are so wicked and monstrous, they leave me in no doubt that the defendant should be kept in prison for the rest of his life." In prison, he has gone on multiple hunger strikes, shrinking down to 100 pounds just for the control of it. He has made several suicide attempts while in prison, and in 2019, he was attacked by another prisoner. He was rushed to the hospital with many large puncture wounds to his chest from a sharpened piece of wood, but he survived this attack, unfortunately. And I just think about how much anger that inmate must have, sharpening that piece of wood, and what he was thinking about while he was sharpening that piece of wood, gearing up to stab this motherfucker. Maybe it's just the heat. We are having a bad heat wave. It's so fucking hot, but it makes me want to just punch things. I want to punch this guy in the face so bad. I hate him. Just because he's just so fucking cocky about it all. He's
gross.
so cocky. And he was such an intelligent person, and he's just so edgy. God, what an edgelord. Van Pariah. I don't know. I can't stand this motherfucker. But yeah, that's the Crossbow Cannibal. The CCTV footage is just so jarring. It's just so jarring and blatant. And yeah, he's suspected of possibly 5. I think there's 5 that I could say objectively fit his MO and his location. But we're going to talk about the others that he might have committed as well. And then that's the T. But yeah, I fucking hate this guy. And that CCTV footage is fucking nightmare. It's nightmare fuel. This month was really great. I'm happy that it's over, but I do look forward to doing a second part of
because listen, I didn't think there'd be as many cases as there were.
No, there's too many. There's so many that
really
I didn't
overwhelmed
get to do. Yeah, and there was a lot of cases that I researched that I was like, okay, I'm going to do this one, and then another one would come.
Or older cases that I did that fit the theme perfect, you know? Mm-hmm. So I'm going to do a little, just very brief business time because I'm sweating myself to death.
It's very hot.
It's very hot in here. We can't run, I have a window unit, and it is loud as fuck, so we cannot run it while we record. So basically, I want to talk about our Patreon just a little bit.
Yeah.
Tomorrow, I will be doing the drawing for a free month of our
that's really
tier.
exciting. I almost forgot.
Our $5 tier. If you want, I'm going to give you, until I do the drawing, to enter. Please go to our Discord, post a picture of a pet, and I will put names in a hat, and I will pull one out, and then you will get a private message on Discord. Then I'll announce your name, etc. That'll be cool. Our Patreon is really awesome. Willow's going to be covering
Peter Sutcliffe.
Peter Sutcliffe. Thank you. My brain just shut down. It made the window shut down noise.
The Yorkshire Ripper.
The Yorkshire Ripper. I'm covering. Here's what I got planned. Here's all of next month if you want to know what I'm doing. Okay.
You already have it ready?
I do.
I usually pick
I've been
my
doing the
Patreon
research
episode randomly unless I do that.
I've been doing the research on cases that grab my attention. Darlie Routier, she was accused of killing her 2 boys, her young young children.
Oh, you told me about this.
Yes. And everybody, it was a trial by media, kind of like how Scott Peterson was a trial by media. The difference is he did it, and I don't believe she did.
I really want to do a month where we do guilty until proven innocent, a proven innocence.
Yeah.
An innocence month.
But I want you guys to check that out. And my Scott Peterson expose, because his family and lawyers are really pushing that he was innocent using basically just lies. And so I want to go point by point and dismantle their case. That'll be super fun.
Yeah.
And then I'm covering the final victims, known victims of Israel Keys. That will be my next episode because they deserve their own episode.
Right.
Yeah, and we always focus on him, but I want to focus on the victims instead. I want us to sit with what happened to them.
Right.
And I know that's hard, but that's what we have planned. Our Patreon's really cool. Our Discord is cool. Get in there. In addition, I've been doing a lot of tarot readings. If you want one, my email is in the description. And I have a reading for everybody and every budget, and I will work with you because I love doing them. They're very fun. And I have nearly 30 years of experience and a pretty good track record. So hit me up. But other than that, if all you can do to support this podcast is listen, thank you.
Thank you so much.
And I love you. I said it creepy.
Oh, she made a creepy face too.
I did. I have to get into it when I say it that way. I have to do some method acting. Yeah, but I'm going to go now because they're sweaty spaghetti and I don't like it.
Hey, y'all, it's July 4th weekend. Y'all just please be safe out there.
Yes.
Y'all need a sober driver and a sober diver because we live in Arkansas. A lot of people are shooting fireworks off at
And
the lakes and the rivers and
Mm-hmm.
swimming drunk. Please just buddy system, be careful.
My Uncle Robert died around the 4th of July because of a drunk boater.
Yeah, that happens.
And he was on a fishing boat.
Happens a lot. It's very frequent.
And it was very scary and very sad for his family. So y'all, please be careful.
Look after each other.
And look after each other, yes. But we will see you next time. Goodbye.
Bye.
Us on your social media platform of choice. Linktree/cruelty has all of the links. Check out our Patreon for exclusive episodes, merch, ad-free episodes, live ghost hunts, and much more. Please be sure to subscribe. New episodes are uploaded weekly. Thank you so much. See you next time. Music and production by Libby.